Hi, well, it's Dr. Fox, and in this video, I want to talk about the belief that a lot of individuals hold, particularly those with mental illness or those who are along the borderline personality disorder spectrum or have BPD, and that they believe that they are beyond help. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So hang tight, and here we go. All right, so people write me sometimes and they ask, well, I feel like I'm beyond help and no one can help me, and there's no medication that can help me, there's no intervention that has helped me, or some have even written me and said that therapists, psychiatrists, doctors, medical doctors, mental health providers have told them that they are beyond help, that they have BPD or NPD or whatever disorder it may be, and that they are beyond help. I think this is massively inappropriate for a professional mental health, medical, any type of provider to tell an individual they are beyond help. I just don't believe that. I've worked with folks all along the BPD spectrum, from extreme to severe to mild to almost absent, let's say, or just traits. And it's important to realize that that statement, beyond help, that doesn't really speak to the individual. It speaks to the BPD. It speaks to the pathology. And that's exactly what we don't want to do. We don't want to speak to the BPD. We don't want to strengthen the BPD. We don't want to strengthen those maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns that cause those maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns to grow. Because typically you learn them over time. The individual learned issues and symptoms and patterns and beliefs and behaviors over time, that when they're developing, they develop these maladaptive patterns in order to get some need met. Now, there of course are more adaptive ways to get those needs met, but what happens, for whatever reason, the individual found a maladaptive means to do that. And that became a really strong habit, or even an internalized habit. So they hold on to this belief, they engage in this behavior, they engage in these patterns. And when it interferes with relationships, whether they're therapeutic relationships, medical type relationships, romantic relationships, employment relationships, social relationships, every type of relationship, you know what I'm saying? Every type of relationship, that then when those relationships dissolve or they break for whatever reason, right? You break up or they separate or you get fired or whatever it is. When it becomes dissolved, that is speaking to the pathology that strengthens the maladaptive patterns. And you would think, well, wait a minute. If I'm engaging in maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns, and it's causing me to lose relationships, lose jobs, impair my functioning throughout the day, weeks, months, or years, wouldn't I stop and say, wait a minute, this is destructive, so I need to change it? Well, that's not how human beings work. It would be great, and some people do. Some people early on, they engage in these maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns, and they realize, wait a minute, what am I doing? But the change, if they've become internalized and they're habitual, the change is hard. It's hard to unlearn a habit and learn a new one, to overlay an adaptive strategy or habit over a maladaptive one. Because first you have to unlearn, then you have to learn the new habit. And this is tough. You have to build insight into it. These are things I want you to do. Build insight into it. Recognize those maladaptive patterns occur. Then block those maladaptive patterns. Typically we do that by stopping ourselves, thinking about what we're doing. And that's where the false belief that, oh, well, I'm probably beyond help. I'm beyond help. Nobody can help me. Even my psychiatrist said, I mean, you're pretty beyond help. I don't know that anybody can help you. You're super broken. Wait a minute. Even broken crayons can still color. And if the crayons can do it, you can do it. Don't forget that. It's one of my favorite quotes because I think it is so relevant. And, I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. And so he's ex-military and stuff like that. And I was asking him, I said, hey, man, how you doing? Just a typical, hey, man, how you doing? And he says, you know what, Doc? when there's a hard rain coming, he said, you have cows and buffaloes. Okay. He said, so what happens is when the hard rain is coming and the cows sense or they see or they notice or they feel the hard rain is coming, they start booking it. They want to outrun the rain. They're going to run and run and run. Some are going to get dehydrated. Some are going to run so hard that they fall and they get stampeded upon and killed. And some just are going to run out of breath and their heart's going to explode and they're just not going to make it. So you lose so many cows when the hard rain comes. Because with a buffalo, when they know the hard rain is coming, they run towards it. They run through it. And that means that the hard rain is going to last for a shorter period of time. And he said, you know what, Doc? I'm a buffalo. I was like, man, I love that story. That's a great analogy because no one is beyond help. I don't believe that, particularly those that are along the borderline personality disorder spectrum. Even those in the extreme range, even those upper 3% that everybody thinks everybody with BPD has. That is absolutely not true. That everyone can benefit from help. If the expectation is, well, if I go to therapy, all of a sudden these, pathological maladaptive behaviors are going to go away and I'm going to be like Steve or I'm going to be like Janet, whoever they are. And it doesn't matter who they are because it matters what you believe about Steve and Janet and that you believe they have no problems. That isn't true. Whoever Steve and Janet are, they got their own problems. They're dealing with their own bouts of depression. They're dealing with their own issues of anxiety. They're dealing with their own fears about their employment, their financial status, their health, all those other issues. But what happens is when you have that BPD and you have those habits that are maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns, you've internalized them. You've grabbed onto them. And every time that those maladaptive patterns cause disruption in your life, you feel like it validates that belief. See, personalities, all of our personalities, whether they're maladaptive, adaptive, whatever they are, but we all develop our lives based upon how we see our life and how we believe we should be treated. And we populate our life, which builds our social circle, our interpersonal circle, with people that validate that belief about ourselves. Best example is an individual with narcissistic personality disorder. What they do is they enlist people that validate and perpetuate the narcissist belief. Not on purpose, but they do it because it's easier to just give in, to Marcus. Don't deal with Marcus. Don't argue with Marcus. Just, yep, Marcus, you're right. You're right. You're right. Because nobody wants to hear it out of Marcus, and everybody's heard it 1,000 times. But what happens is that person then stays in the circle. Now, let's say you got somebody else, right? So she comes onto the scene, and right, Marcus says something, that is meant to reinforce his narcissism. Let's say it's, he's like, oh, I don't play on the softball team. Nobody wants me to play because I'm too good. But Sandra knows that it's because Marcus is rude and he doesn't play well with others, and he tends to, try to monopolize the team in the game. So she tells him that. Well, that's a narcissistic wound for Marcus. Marcus is in like, right? Blow her off, or he may, act out and, verbal aggression, hopefully not physical aggression, but he could, whatever it is. But she doesn't fill his interpersonal circle. See, so what happens is as we fill this interpersonal circle, our social circle, our circle of life, so to speak, that this becomes a perpetuation of our belief. And even if you lose people along the way, and let's say there's no one else in your life, and sometimes people live their lives like that. And what happens is you have one other self in there, yourself. And that's where that family in the head, right? There's a wonderful thing I talk about in my other videos. It's family in the head. It's a conceptualization by Lorna Smith Benjamin, brilliant psychologist. And she talks about family in the head. It's this chorus we have in our head that say things to us that reinforce these maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns. And when we believe that we're beyond help, that turns up the volume on our family in the head. It makes it harder to embrace adaptive strategies over maladaptive strategies. It makes it harder to unlearn those maladaptive strategies and overlay the adaptive ones, but it is absolutely possible. Is it easy? No, right? Are there tools and things, right, that you can do to help yourself? Absolutely. Absolutely. And the last thing that I want you to know, and the most important, is that you are not beyond help. You can benefit from the resources, whether it's self-help stuff, it's finding a therapist that you connect with, one who is compassionate, understanding, and who wants to work with you against your BPD, against your pathology, depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever issues you're dealing with and contending with. But you are not and never beyond help. And I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.